Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the general session and day 2 of the AABE-NYMAC 2020 Virtual Energy Summit. As your MC for the day, my name is Kenneth Shaw, and I'm a labor attorney with Edison. As Gina did yesterday, I'll be guiding you through today's summit and introducing key speakers. Now, before I begin, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this event. Normally, we would have this summit in person. These aren't normal times. And in my experience this year, whenever you do anything virtually, it requires everyone to make certain technical adaptations to approximate what you would get out of a live event. Thus, we'd like to thank you for your flexibility in joining us and helping us make this virtual summit happen. Now, as with any summit, the purpose is to learn and hopefully network with current speakers and other attendees. So I encourage you all to look at the attendee list and connect with someone by adding their name to network with them. Build a bridge today. That's why we're here. Now, with that said, let's get started. I would like to introduce our first speaker, Renee McClure, who will welcome you to this event today. As a brief introduction, Renee is a manager in community and customer management at the National Grid with over 34 years experience. She has also accomplished several achievements outside her role. An accomplished motivational speaker and panelist, she has appeared before various professional groups, including the National Society of Black Engineers. She has appeared on syndicated talk and radio shows and has been featured in several publications, including the Tavis Smiley Report. She has also achieved several awards for providing leadership to professional groups that advance the initiatives of women, African Americans, and young adults. Please welcome our current Secretary of AABE-NYMAC, Renee McClure.
Thank you, Ken. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the New York Metropolitan chapter of the American Association of Blacks in Energy 2020 Energy Summit. The New York chapter is one of 3 chapters in the Northeast region of the United States. It was founded in 1982 by people of color in the energy profession. The founding corporations were Brooklyn Union Gas, now known as National Grid, and Con Edison. Our chapter strives to give professionals and students a pathway to learn more about the energy industry through education, mentoring, community service, and business networking. As we think about the challenges 2020 has placed before all of us, from the ongoing impact of COVID, social inequities and injustice, to how we reimagine our business in the energy sector, our summit theme of sustainable energy, innovation, and our community provides the platform for us to discuss opportunities for creating a blueprint for our future in the midst of all of these challenges. For those able to attend the first session of the summit, in line with our theme, yesterday you heard from Bill Suggs, the New York chapter president, Borough President Eric Adams, and Deanne Donnelly of Con Ed. Following those introductions, our panelists of subject matter experts covered topics of sustainable energy, where we are today, defining the path forward, and supply diversity, inclusion, and equity. These sessions provided insight on how we need to do business in these changing times. And our keynote by Congresswoman Yvette Clarke shared information about key energy initiatives currently underway. Today, you are in for a wealth of information once again. When we hear about the state of energy at National Grid by John Bruckner, the New York State President, followed by our keynote address on the state-local energy law from Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. And then today's panelists will discuss navigating the new normal, how utilities adapted to a pandemic in the midst of social unrest. And also from a panel of women called Empower Her. Following the panel discussions, we will hear from Gregorio Mayers from the Office of the Mayor, who also delivered a keynote address on effective leadership. For more information, as Ken has mentioned, about all of our speakers, please click on their bios on the website. Just want to take an opportunity to extend special thanks to the planning team, all of the speakers, and you, our attendees, for ensuring the outstanding success of this event. We look forward to working with all of you as we journey together in creating the new normal. Thank you once again, and Ken, back to you.
Thank you very much, Renee, for your words. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, John Bruckner, the president of the National Grid, to speak about the state of the energy sector. As you can imagine, achieving such a role means that John has proven to be adept at leading his organization, meeting and exceeding challenges, and achieving desired results to deliver electricity to 1.6 million customers in upstate New York and natural gas to 2.3 million customers in upstate New York, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, and Long Island. With over 35 years of experience at the National Grid, he has held several prior leadership positions. In 2015, he served as a senior vice president of National Grid's electric operations. He then served as an executive vice president of electric and gas engineering, operations, safety, and capital delivery. He also served as president for Long Island Electric Transmission and Distribution, where he was responsible for the safe and reliable delivery of service to the Long Island Power Authority's 1.2 million customers. With a commitment to the delivery of an energy future that is smarter, cleaner, and more resilient, John serves on various boards, including the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium. Please welcome our next speaker, John Bruckner.
Well, first, Ken, really appreciate that introduction. And I think I would start with the success that I had in my career really came from the fact that I had tremendous teams that worked with me. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. And it's always a little reflective when somebody reminds me I've been here 35 years, but it's important. It's important because, and I'll go into why, but it's important that, we learn from those 35 years, right? And so, again, thank you for the introduction. I certainly want to thank the entire New York chapter of the American Association of Blacks in Energy for hosting this energy summit. Look, you said early, Ken, that it's been a different year, 2020. And so when I think about it, we all think about the different things that happened during 2020. It's been a challenging year, but when you think about the work of this chapter and you say, hey, it would have been easier probably not to do this meeting, right? It's easy. And the risk is it doesn't live up to his expectation. Look, it will, and it does live up, and it exceeds his expectation. The people that are participating today, it is a bridge and network, and use that. And you certainly have my contact information. Please use it. I also want to just say that, I've been here 35 years, and I'm very proud of our longstanding relationship with AABE. You heard it earlier from Renee, whether it's at National Grid, the current relationship that we have, or we reflect back on our legacy companies like Keyspan and Brooklyn Union. So I'm very proud of that relationship and look forward to continuing it. And through the years, our relationship with AABE, both at the local and the national level through participation on boards and conference attendance and the local summer energy, academy. I know personally, I've been involved with executive coaching session for years. And, not only were they coaching sessions, but for me, it was opportunities to meet other individuals in our companies that today I have a personal relationship with and a friendship that goes far beyond just mentoring. So I'm very appreciative and thankful for that. And there are just many more initiatives, too many to list. But it's through those partnerships that we understand how we can build the future in line with the New York mission, right? Which is very clearly to provide energy professionals, executives, entrepreneurs, and students a pathway to learn more about the energy industry that we're so fond of and certainly engaged in. So, when we talk about the state of energy at National Grid, we are committed to be at the heart of clean, fair, and I'm going to say more important than anything else, affordable energy future. But we also realize we can't do this alone. It has to be in partnership with our stakeholders and the industry, such as AABE. And, we all need to, we don't need much reminding, but, climate change is one of the defining challenges of this generation. And there is no bigger topic in our industry than clean energy. And National Grid, as an electricity, natural gas, and clean energy supplier, we serve more than 20 million people through our networks in New York, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. And we're transforming our electricity and natural gas networks. And again, we use these acronyms or these analogies of, it's not your grandfather's business. Look, it's not. It's not your grandfather's business. We're putting networks out there that are smarter, cleaner, and more resilient energy solutions to meet the reducing greenhouse gas emission standards. And I know we're not doing it alone. At National Grid, we're doing it, and we know our neighbors at Con Ed and all the other businesses and utilities within the New York State region. We're working very collaboratively to make that a reality. And so, for instance, here at National Grid, we recently announced our goal to achieve a net zero emissions by 2050. And that emissions is not only the emissions from our own operation, but also from the sale of electricity and gas to our customers. So it's a very high goal to set. It's a very high standard, and we're very confident that we will achieve these goals and focus on 10 areas. I know it's an expansive list, but it's important that you hear it, because it also is important that when you hear this list comprises of opportunities for people to be engaged with, because this is the future of where our industry is going. So if you just give me a minute, let me just go through it real quick. So we're talking about expanded energy efficiency and demand response, decarbonizing our gas network, methane reductions, innovative technologies, connecting large-scale renewables, storage solutions, distributed generation, methane reduction, advancing clean transportation, electric vehicles, charging stations, and last but certainly not least, but investing in technologies around large-scale carbon management. I think it's important that you hear those lists, because that's the direction this industry is going, and that's the direction that will provide opportunities for people. At the same time, our commitment to our people and to our communities we serve continues to grow as we develop the skills of the future. We will and continue to focus on low-income communities and providing access to skills development for 45,000 people by 2030, and achieving 500,000 or 500,000 hours of volunteering to those communities by 2030. And this, I said I'm proud of a lot of things, but I'm especially proud of this. We have made a commitment to achieve 50% diversity in our senior leadership and group executive committee by 2025. This isn't something we're going to meet by 2050 in some, remote decade, several out. This is, within 5 years, and that clock is ticking. We will achieve 50% diversity in our senior leadership and group executive committee. We're also recognize that our commitment to our communities has to go beyond just providing a safe, resilient energy system. It's about making sure our economic and social role in the community has the greatest positive impact. It involves developing infrastructure and helping customers use their energy more efficiently. And we realize that many of our customers are making a decision on a daily basis between food and fuel. And we need to make sure that the fuel that they do use is used as efficiently, as cost effectively as possible for them. It also includes partnering with charitable organizations, encouraging our people to support social, economic, and environmental development, and helping our communities recover from COVID-19, which, we could probably spend the whole day on. Look, a strong community is good for the people who live there, it's good for our business, and it's good for the wider economy. So let me conclude simply by stating how much we look forward to continuing our partnership with AABE. And Ken, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'll hand it back to you.
John, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate that. I'd now like to introduce our keynote speaker of the general session, the Assemblywoman of the 55th Assembly District in the New York State Legislature and member of the State Energy Committee, Latrice Walker. Hailing from Brownsville, Brooklyn, and a member of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority Sigma Kappa Zeta chapter, Latrice is a powerhouse lawyer who has leveraged her training to become a zealous civil service advocate. She has worked with local officials to preserve affordable housing while advocating for residents in the New York City Housing Authority. She's helped tenants avoid eviction. She's defended young minority victims against stop and frisk practices. Having served as counsel to U.S. Representative Yvette Clarke since 2007, she played a central role in helping to plan, organize, evaluate, and integrate the congressional agenda to improve her community. She currently represents the 55th Assembly District in the New York State Legislature as a member of the Housing, Election Law, Energy, Correction, and Insurance Committees. She also serves as the chair for several organizations, including the Subcommittee on Renewable Energy. Please join me in welcoming Assemblywoman Latrice Walker.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to be before my AABE family. As was indicated, I proudly represent the communities of Brownsville, East Flatbush, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, Cypress Hills, East New York, East Flatbush, and Crown Heights. And I want to take an opportunity to thank my brother, Bill Suggs, of course, Priscilla Houston and Renee McClure, and the entire New York Metropolitan area chapter of the American Association of Blacks in Energy for extending this invitation for me to be your keynote speaker for today. A lot of things have happened since we last were together, and many changes in our country, and as well as in our state and local laws. And so hopefully I'll have an opportunity to speak a little bit about some of those changes. As we know, in February, we were all up in Albany at the New York State Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus, and discussing all of the changes that New York State has taken with respect to energy in our state and for our communities. Who knew just a short couple of weeks after that, March would roll around and we would be dealing with devastating health and environmental injustices in our communities. But we all recognize that everyone has a role to play in New York State's goal to achieve an adequate clean energy climate agenda. And many of the elements of our goal will be successful if we are all recognize how interconnected we truly are. We have an audacious goal by 2040 to achieve 100% zero emission electricity, and by 2050 to reduce emissions at least 85% below 1990 levels. The only way we can achieve this goal is through broad and sweeping changes, and also a focus on our education, accessibility, and sustainability. When I say all parties must be involved, I mean every industry, consumer, and resident of New York has to do their part. Of course, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, known as the CLCPA, was signed into law in July of 2019 by Governor Cuomo. And he laid out a clear pathway that allows every individual in the state to make choices that further the goals for clean energy. Why the need for clean energy now? Well, the potential has always been there. In New York City, we saw that the devastating effects of COVID-19 had on communities of color, of course, were connected to what we were experiencing long throughout history. In New York City, there were 24,411 deaths due to COVID-19. When COVID-19 hit the Black community, many acted as if it was the first time that they heard that these healthcare disparities existed, that Black children weren't already dying of asthma. In fact, Black Americans were exposed 1.5 times more likely than other communities to pollution from burning fossil fuels and other racial demographic issues. I Can't Breathe was more than a slogan for the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a statement that was heard in hospitals serving predominantly Black and brown communities across the country. What we know is that COVID-19 exacerbates pre-existing health conditions such as asthma, lung disease, heart disease, diabetes, and of course, they have their highest numbers in Black families. Environmental factors such as criteria air pollutants from factories and car emissions are the leading contributors to asthma. There's a bus depot in my district. Of course, we know that highways such as Linden Boulevard travel through the community. And while the rest of New York City transitioned to energy efficient buses in our communities in Eastern York and Brownsville were left with antiquated diesel buses up until the summer of 2019. It was reported a few years ago that asthma was a leading cause of emergency room visits, hospitalizations, and missed school days in New York City's poorest neighborhoods. While most research focused on the influence of the indoor environment on asthma, the study examined that the neighborhood effects of childhood asthma, such as housing and ambient environmental hazards, were huge contributors. According to a 2018 health community profile, emergency room asthma visits are the highest in the Brownsville community compared to the rest of New York City. The profile argues that 1,358 children are hospitalized each year. A 2017 report from the NAACP and the Clean Air Task Force provided more evidence. It showed that African Americans are 75% more likely than other Americans to live in so-called fence-line communities, defined as areas situated near facilities that produce hazardous waste. A study conducted by the Environmental Protection Agency's National Center for Environmental Assessment examined facilities emitted air pollution along with the racial and economic profiles of those surrounding communities. Specifically in Brownsville, in my district, 71% of the homes have defects, which consist of insufficient heating and peeling paint. These conditions could potentially cause an asthma exacerbation. But low-income people, who are the most undefended ones when it comes to the effects of environmental pollution, climate change, and global warming, are directly connected with the irresponsible actions of many of our businesses with respect to fossil fuels. However, there are a number of things that we can do. So one is the Clean Energy Community Initiative. This initiative builds a more sustainable New York by building more sustainable communities. Local governments affect energy choices in their communities, from government operations to homes, businesses, and community institutions. Local governments in New York State can use the Clean Energy Communities program to implement energy actions, save energy costs, create jobs, and improve the environment. In addition to providing tools, resources, and technical assistance, the program recognizes and rewards leadership for the completion of clean energy projects. This includes New York City. And this also includes communities like ours, where we had an initiative which we called Solarize Brownsville, where we install over 225 solar panels across the Nehemiah homes within our communities. It also includes energy upgrades, where we achieve 10% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from buildings. It includes the placement of LED street lights, which convert street lights to energy efficient LED technologies. Clean Fleets, which installs electric vehicle charging stations and deploy alternative vehicles. Of course, I already mentioned the Solarize, the clean heating and cooling and all solar campaigns, and a unified solar permit, which streamlines the approval process for solar installations. It also includes energy code enforcement training, where we will be training compliance officers in energy code and best practices. And people will receive a climate smart community certification and get certified by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. There's a community choice aggregation, which puts energy supply choices in communities' hands. And of course, it also adopts a policy to report the energy use of buildings back to the state. The Energize New York Finance also offers financing for energy upgrades to businesses and to nonprofits. Some of the other things that we've experienced is perhaps in New York City, they just beginning to implement Local Law 97. And of those, one of the things that we've experienced is with Atlantic Towers, perhaps is one of the multifamily developments in my community. They just made an application to the Public Service Commission for sub-metering, actually to housing and community renewal. This is a large complex in my district, and basically the owner has laid out a number of ideas that he thinks that sub-metering would be the best option in order to provide compliance with Local Law 97. Another one of the initiatives that we have going on, of course, as I mentioned, is the Historic Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. The CLCPA requires the state to achieve a carbon-free electricity system by 2040 and reduce greenhouse gas emissions 85% below 1990 levels, as mentioned. Setting a new standard for states and the nation to expedite the transition to a clean energy economy. The new law will drive investment in clean energy, such as wind, solar, energy efficiency, and energy storage. Importantly, the implementation of the CLCPA will target investments for jobs, improve public health and the quality of life, and provide all New Yorkers with more robust clean energy choices. Highlights of the law include putting New York on the road to an economy-wide carbon neutrality. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation will, through the adoption of regulations, drive 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, with an interim mandate of 40% reductions of those emissions by 2030. The Climate Action Council will develop a plan to offset remaining emissions through carbon capture or other technologies, resulting in a carbon neutral economy. And of course, we would need your help in order to comprise the membership on that council. 70% renewable energy by 2030, and zero carbon emission in the electric sector by 2040. The CLCPA codifies Governor Cuomo's national leading goals, also called his Green New Deal, mandating that at least 70% of New York City's electricity will come from renewable energy sources, such as wind, by 2030. And the state's power system will be 100% carbon neutral. The Climate Action Council and Policy Roadmap experts will head relevant state agencies and legislative appointees and craft a roadmap to policies needed to achieve the law's mandates. The council will be co-chaired by the New York State Energy Research and Development Agency, of course, NYSERDA, and the DEC. It will establish sector-specific working groups to make sure that experts and stakeholders inform all policies developed under the Act. Planned working groups include just transition, as well as working groups on transportation, agriculture, energy-intensive and trade-exposed industries, land use, and energy efficiency. Landmark investments in the environmental justice and just transition will basically work with state agencies to invest 35% of clean energy program resources to benefit disadvantaged communities, and will aim to invest 40%. Additionally, the Just Transition Working Group will work to ensure that individuals working in conventional energy industries are provided the training and opportunities in a growing clean energy economy. A number of those initiatives we started, of course, I can speak to a little bit about the Marcus Garvey houses. Marcus Garvey houses was an area in our community. As you know, the BQDM was sort of wholly contained within the 55th Assembly District. And the levels that we were experiencing throughout the BQDM community was so low that we were nearing brownout numbers. And it really caused our community to come together, to get involved and to get activated and come up with new ideas for how we can move towards a clean energy economy, but also deal with our energy issues that we were facing. So the Marcus Garvey Village Microgrid, it was a solar storage and fuel cell system. And it represents the first microgrid in New York City, right here in Brownsville, to provide peak load reduction, standalone backup power, and ensure solar PV self-consumption. It's a model to emulate everywhere. New York City is one of the most energy-intensive urban environments in the world. As long as the load grows over time, different networks will become constrained. The Brooklyn, Queens area is now the target of a comprehensive energy efficiency and load reduction program in which demand energy is playing a major role. The owners of this 625 apartment complex, Marcus Garvey Village, deployed a first-of-its-kind microgrid, which integrated solar PV storage and a fuel cell with Demand's DEN.OS intelligent software to manage these distributed energy resources. A key aspect of the project is the ability to ensure that the village self-consumes all of the energy it generates without exporting to the grid. That capability directly aligns with the local utilities requirements, which help facilitate the interconnection and permitting process. Another achievement is that the project is the first multi-family residential storage system using lithium-ion batteries in New York City. The Marcus Garvey Village Microgrid is a prime example of how a major city can build an intelligently controlled digital power grid, provide local resiliency and other grid supporting capabilities, and transform the energy supply chain. Such systems also lower energy costs, deliver essential load relief for utilities, and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Also, recently, Governor Cuomo signed the nation's largest offshore wind agreement. The project will be located in Sunrise Park, Brooklyn. The project aligns completely with New York's unprecedented clean energy goals, which includes 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind by 2035. And I'm excited about that. I almost want to call myself Wind Girl. The project is a combination of two separate projects, which together will total 1,700 megawatts, enough to power more than 1 million New York homes and support more than 1,600 jobs, with a combined economy activity of $3 $1.2 billion statewide. Collectively, these projects will provide enough renewable energy power to power up to 2 million households and meet nearly 10% of New York's electricity need by 2025. Reaching 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind is expected to create more than 10,000 jobs. The state is also taking new steps to support workforce development in partnership with the private sector, including establishing a New York State Advisory Council on offshore wind economic and workforce development, a new $20 million offshore wind training institute, and a $3 million community and workforce benefits fund to establish the institutional infrastructure to educate, train, and employ New Yorkers. So one of the things that we can learn here is that while we are establishing new and innovative ways of interacting with energy in our communities, we could always make sure that we can have a restorative justice model that basically pours into so many communities who energy initiatives have left behind. Offshore wind will utilize many of the same labor trades that have driven New York's infrastructure economy over the past few decades. These investments will particularly benefit New York's low-income and environmental justice communities, critical outcomes of the CLCPA, and the governor's commitment to a just transition to clean power. The result of this historic project will mark a new chapter in New York's leading offshore wind planning efforts, which have been conducted more than 3 years ago and have included comprehensive and extensive stakeholder, agency, and public consultation. And just yesterday, we received exciting news with regards to the pension funds that we invest in as a state, that they will be divesting from companies that are involved in fossil fuels. The New York State pension fund is the largest pension fund in the world to take a comprehensive climate action step, which includes fossil fuel divestment. The $226 billion state pension fund will review and divest from the riskiest oil and gas companies within 4 years and decarbonize the entire fund by 2040. Another bold action that we've taken in the era of a post-COVID-19 era is the utility shutoff moratorium. Sustainability during the pandemic is our utmost importance, especially for the most vulnerable communities in New York. We have offered solutions to New Yorkers that are manageable and available for the long term. We see the cost of living in New York not going down in any way, despite all of the economic downfalls and downturns that we are experiencing. Energy sustainability on the local level has been addressed by the legislature to ensure that everyone will be safe and healthy during these trying times. There is a COVID-19 shutoff moratorium, and reasonable efforts must be made to provide customers with interest-free payment options. The future is clean, renewable, and sustainable energy. We must leave a world for our children and others that is habitable and enjoyable. If we have not learned anything over the past year, we must acknowledge that science and technology are our friends, and we must use it to our advantage so that all of mankind can have access to a better and cleaner world. We must stand against environmental injustices inflicted upon our communities and stand up for those who do not have a voice loud enough to be heard, including in the science community. So, science as advocacy. We must embrace legislators also who are pushing an agenda that is bold and inclusive of all society. The road to a cleaner world is one that every person and business has a responsibility to educate and participate in. It's a process towards progress, and I see a clean and renewable energy future. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to present before you today. I hope that some of the initiatives that we spoke about with respect to the state will encourage some of you to be involved in a more thorough and comprehensive way. One of the things that I speak a lot about is the fact that when I'm in these sort of energy rooms, the Black and Brown community is sort of far and few in between. And whenever I see sort of one or two, it makes my heart warm. But we really have to not just, knock the doors open, but we have to take them off the hinges so that they can never put them back on again, because we are the innovators of energy from the beginning of time. And our important advancements and contributions to energy initiatives are undoubtedly mistaken. So again, thank you so much. I am Assembly Member Latrice Walker, and I look forward to continuing along in the AABE conference for 2020. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Latrice, thank you very much for your speech. That was very powerful. And John and Renee, thank you also for the time in the morning. In moving forward with this summit, we have 2 great breakout sessions planned for you today. Once again, you will have a choice on which one to attend. Now, to enter your session, please click the agenda and select either Navigating the New Normal, How Utilities Adapted in a Pandemic in the Midst of Social Unrest, or Empower Her, a discussion with women in energy. Once you click either topic, kindly click Join Livestream. Now, as a reminder, feel free to network and reach out to other attendees in these sessions by clicking Attendees and then add them to your network. As yesterday, we will reconvene this session after this session for a closing session and a few remarks. I'll see you then.